So I've got my bootable hard drive, my USB right here, just got Windows ISO on there. We're running into some problems where I think the disk partitioning isn't correct, and so we got to just figure that out, and hopefully that'll be the case. So the discs aren't even showing up. We gotta figure out why, what's going on. Okay, we figured out how to reformat the drives. Got into the BIOS of the machine before we plugged in the bootable USB, and hopefully we created one big massive RAID 0, and so hopefully that'll take care of the problem. Food break. So we keep getting an error, and I'll show you the error here once it comes up. So everything looks good as far as we can tell. And then we get this error. Hey Joe, this is Mike Bonacci, graduating in IT this semester. So my goal with this project was to set up a business environment. So I wanted to kind of take what we learned in 3100 and 3110 and kind of put them together and pretend like I was starting a business from scratch, basically. So I have these servers, and need to set them up. My goal was to kind of do that, is go through and set these machines up. As I was going through, I changed it because as I did some research, I realized that there wasn't a need for some of the things that we did in 3100 and 3110 to do on a Windows system. And so what I decided to do instead was to make a domain controller which handled DNS as well as all the users and groups type activities. And then I wanted to be able to, um, set up a mail server so that people could use the domain of the business. And then I wanted to set up a DHCP machine so that the computers that come on, the new computers that come onto the domain, they don't necessarily need to have static IPs, which is makes it a lot easier. So those were the things I changed it to, and I wanted to be able to set up two different um, businesses on two different subnets. And so I wanted to pretend like one business was, or one office was in Los Angeles, another office was in New York, and no matter what happened, no matter which user went where, they'd still be able to log in and do their thing um, without any trouble. And so that required some routing, some switching, um, those kinds of technologies. And so that's what I kind of changed it to. Again, as I went further into it, I had to change it again. Windows on the VM network at the school does not allow you to create virtual switches because it's already a virtual machine. And so I kind of had to nix that idea as well. And so I went and talked to Jay Snedden, and he just let me know that it's perfectly normal and actually um, almost more required or better to have um, these like redundancy things on the same subnet. So what I ended up doing was I set up one office instead of two, and I gave it domain controller 1, domain controller 2. One's like a slave, one's like a master. They both have DNS on them that do the same thing. One's a slave, one's a master. Kind of transfer that stuff over. There is DHCP1 and DHCP2. They work together. There's some load balancing going on there. They also, DHCP2 is my failover DHCP. So in case anything happens to DHCP1 or I have to turn it off or what have you, DHCP2 will actually take over and hand out addresses. And then my mail server, I was gonna do it in Windows Server, and I was gonna connect it up to a IIS machine as well. As I went through, though, again talking to Jay, he said that SMTP on Windows is quite a task to handle, and so he said it would be much better and work pretty much the same if you did it on Linux. So I went ahead and set up a Linux client. So that's what I ended up doing with my project. The hope goal that I had was to set it up on a server in the server room, but as you just saw from the video, things did not go well. I could not. I don't know if there was something going on with my boot drive with my USB and the ISO that I had on there. I'm not sure if it was maybe the hard drives weren't configured right inside the server, so I did not get any other experience in VMware, ESXi. And then my dream goal was to set up to kind of make it all work, I guess you should say. So what I wanted to do was, add some clients there, add some users, add some groups and some group policies and things like that, and then just have it all work. With my dream goal, I believe the dream and the hope should be flipped. I found out that getting the clients on there and getting users and groups and all that kind of stuff was much easier to accomplish, um, and should not have been a dream goal, but should have been a hope goal. And so, but either way, I did get some of that done as well. I did get into that, and when I add clients, you can log into them anywhere on the domain. as well as setting up group policy objects and things like that. It all flows. So let's go ahead and dive in here. I'm going to start with my domain controller, my main domain controller. Like I was saying, things were a little bit different in some of the things that we did in IT 3100. We didn't really necessarily need to do on a Windows machine here. So okay, so here's the domain controller. So the domain controller handles Active Directory, and like I mentioned, it kind of does, holds the users, holds the group policy stuff, things like that. And then with Active Directory, everything that I read, all the research that I did said that DNS should go with that, and so I set up DNS server with that. So let's go ahead. I'll show you. So this is my static IP that I set on there. This is the domain that I've got, mikebonacci.info, and all my computers are on the same domain. And then I've got, obviously this computer's name is DC1. So let's go ahead, Active Directory. If we go in here, obviously these are all the users. I didn't set up too many users. I've got myself in there. And then we can definitely set up, we can set up a user. I'll just show you real quick. We go down here, go to user, all those different things. Let's set one up for you. So go ahead. So we'll get to there when we start looking at clients and stuff. We'll get there and take a look and see. Let's go ahead and add him to let's add him to the administrators group. And there you go. You are now an admin on the system. So that's pretty much Active Directory. In here, we can get pretty detailed. We can, these are all the computers that are using the domain, using Active Directory. So these are all the computers that basically a user can sign into. So either you or I, those two users there that I created, those are the two users that we can get on with. Let's see. Also with that, there is group policy management. So group policy is, as you know, kind of the rules and things that users can do while they are logged in. And so I didn't really set up any group policy objects or anything like that, just because it was very basic kind of setup. But we definitely could. We could set, anything really, and tell it to do whatever it is that we need to do. It ranges from, pretty much anything. You can tell it to specific, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like desktop screens here. So we can say only specific stuff can be added on, those kinds of things. And so, and then you assign it to a group. So then whichever group gets that, then those group members fall into those rules. So, but anyway, the main thing about this one is the the DNS stuff. So, kind of a little bit difficult to set up. I thought there was a lot of it would have been a lot easier just to do the commands in Linux and stuff. I thought, but still pretty much the same. I set up a bunch of A records for the machines that are there, and real simple. You just right click, set up a whatever you want there, and then go ahead and add it in. C names, mail servers. Pretty much all the same, just GUI form, which is I don't know. Like I said, I think it would have been easier with commands, but then again, that's how I first learned it. So But anyway, so here's the SOA record and things like that. Here are my name servers: DC1, DC2. Let's see, zone transfers. It'll pass it on to the name servers. So whatever's in here, which is DC1, DC2. So there's that. It was pretty interesting to set up the transferring, kind of making a slave type of thing. Took me a minute. So you just go into here, new zone, secondary zone. Obviously, I would do, so this is my primary zone because this is my main, this is my authoritative. But on the slave, I would do a secondary zone, and then you set up the zone name, and you can create zones. So there's my DNS there, and Active Directory. Let's go to DHCP1. Anyway, so this is my DHCP machine. So DHCP, as you know, handles all of the IPs. So it gives out IPs to machines within the same subnet. So let's see. So this is the DHCP kind of setup wizard, if you will. So this is saying, hey, this is my server here. We're looking at IPv4 stuff. You have to set up scopes. Scopes are your range of IPs that you want to give out. So if you want to do that real quick, we can go, so new scope. You name the scope. So this is like test scope. And then you give it some start IPs. So you say, oh, I want it to start on this IP and I want it to end on this IP. And then here's the subnet mask. So go ahead and hit next. This is saying, is there any exclusions in there? So within your range there, is there any IPs that you don't want to offer? How long do you want the lease to stay? So and then what this is saying is, okay, so now what options do you want it to be static on this scope? So this is saying, okay, so your router, so your default gateway, that's going to be static every time. So let's say the default gateway was um, 0. So we go ahead and add that in there. The next one is domain names. Those are already in there, so we'll just pop on off. Wins is old technology, so we don't look at that very much anymore. And then this obviously is just asking if you want to activate the scope. So once you do all that, you get this here, and it gives you, again, it gives you your address pool. So this is the address pool that I've given it. The start is from 39 and it goes all the way to 62. I do have one exception that I don't want them to use, which is 41, so I threw that in there. This here shows you which IP or which machines are using DHCP. So currently there's only the 2 there. And so here are my scope options here. So this is what I set up to statically, on every machine that logs on to this subnet and asks for an IP from my DHCP machine, these are the static IPs that it'll get. So it'll get a gateway, it'll get the DNS servers, as well as the domain, as well as the broadcast address, and it will perform a mask discovery. So it'll figure out what is the subnet mask, what does it need to be, and so I've gone ahead and done that. So every DHCP machine, you have to authorize it. You have to log in as the domain admin, which I don't believe I am right now at this time, but just a local admin. But so you have to authorize the machine as the domain admin, saying, yes, this machine is a DHCP machine, and yes, people can ask for DNS from me. So I did this, configure failover. Configure failover is for the DHCP2, my second machine, and it kind of It's just for, like I said, it's redundancy. If anything happens to this server here, then the machines, you can still log in. You can still add new machines. Machines can still ask for DHCP, for dynamic addresses. They can still work, because everything gets pushed over to DHCP2. And it's not going to let us go through here because there isn't any available scopes. But basically, it just goes through and asks you if you want to, where you want the failover to go. Do you want it to do load balancing? And if you do you want it to be 50-50? Do you want it to be like 75 on one, 25 on another? Things like that. So I set up load balancing so that it, so a machine will kind of ask, and whoever's turn it is, whichever DHCP machine's turn it is, it says, okay, I'll give the IP this time, and the next one does the next one, and so on and so forth. So again, just want to show you DHCP1. It's on the domain. So yeah, so that's DHCP. Let's go ahead and go to my mail machine here. I just went through and set up XM4 on a Linux client, so or a Linux server, I guess. So I'm not sure exactly what to show you here, except for I'm just going to go ahead and just show you that I can send mail locally, I guess. Good luck on the presentation. Okay, so mail works as far as internal goes, which is good. So we'll go ahead and log out of this. And let's log into my first client. There we go, DHCP. Log right on. Let's go to Thunderbird. So I'm going to go ahead and send from Bob's account over to my personal Gmail account. While we're waiting for that, let's go ahead and go to network here. Just want to show you that, oh, there it is. Just want to show you that I am in fact using DHCP. Well, I guess while we're waiting for that, let's go check this out. And there it is, test. So let's go ahead, and this is where it doesn't quite work for me. So I'm gonna send one back and say, did this send? So I'm having troubles with it going back to Bob. So it does send, as you can hear, it did a little whoosh. It does send out, but I never receive it again. Not sure exactly what's going on there, but anyway, here we go. It's being really slow. Like before, obtaining automatically, and I'm on the internet. So just wanted to show you that. Let's exit all this stuff, and like I said, it never ends up popping up. So yeah, so that's that. That's the client here. Let's go ahead and get into, let's look at client 2 maybe. So this is my Windows 10 machine. Okay, so again, just wanted to show that this is in fact using DHCP. Since we're here, why don't we try and log in as the new user. and here we go. Admin Mr. Joe Frankham is coming on. It works. So Joe, our user that we made is good to go. So gonna just go ahead and close out of this. Maybe. The hours, I would say I spent probably about 100 hours. I accounted for the Windows Server class, um, so 3 times a week for an hour. And I would obviously I took out a couple hours there because some of it was we were taking not really learning so much about Windows systems, but kind of learning about maybe some other things. And then there was a class or two I missed. So anyway, so I took a couple hours out of that. That accounted for about um, 50 hours. So altogether, I've worked on it for about an hour. 100 hours, sorry. As I was configuring the mail server, really took a lot of hours. I kept running into the problems. The other things, they took a lot of research to kind of figure out online exactly what to do and what was going on and what we needed to accomplish there. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it.